welcome back to the Strong After 50 podcast. Solo episode today in the hot seat. Just want to do a quick shout out to the new subscribers in the last couple of weeks. We did reach 10,000 new subscribers a couple of weeks ago, which is was a bit of a goal. It came much faster than I anticipated. I think we reached that in about 4 or 5 months. I was kind of thinking that was more like my 12 month. It would have been great to do 12 months, but my last newsletter definitely didn't grow as fast as this one. So I think we've actually got a really good audience and people that want to change their health and fitness as they get a little bit older. So thanks so much for those new subscribers. And if you listen to the podcast and haven't joined the newsletter, you can jump over to Substack, just search Strong After 50 and you'll find me there. Another quick one, I just wanted to, bit of a shout out, and I don't know this person personally, always a bit of a risk when you recommend somebody, but Dr. Stephanie Estima, I think her name is, I'm not too sure that's the correct pronunciation, but I've just sent her the occasional message. She's really good at replying and just acknowledging her audience as well, but I think she's late 40s, but offers some really good advice on her Instagram page. So if you're looking for someone, particularly if you're one of the girls out there looking for someone to follow, she's right into her weight training and she promotes heavyweight training all the time. I think she still squats and deadlifts herself. And I just like some of the things she's got to say. She breaks some things down pretty simply. She can get a bit technical because she has a medical background, so she also does understand and can go into the science of things. But if that's your sort of flavour and you want to get into that a little bit more, she's definitely worth a follow. I think there's a few good people around at the moment over 50, a few people that have also disappointed me. I won't mention names, but there was a couple of high profile people that I was following and used to sort of not look up to them, but I suppose sing their praises about what the work they were doing in the industry. And more recently, they've been exposed a little bit. And some of these other high profile people that I believe are potentially selling themselves out a little bit with some of the products they promote. There's some health and supplement products, which I just don't personally believe in. And look, I would love to get some sponsors on board to the newsletter eventually, but I definitely wouldn't promote products that I don't think are worthwhile or I believe in or wouldn't use myself, and I like these guys are often saying, oh, I don't promote any products I don't use myself. Well, you can't use every product, and every 5 minutes I hear them promoting a different bed. I mean, how many beds have you got in your house that you sleep on? Seriously? However, if Sleep 8 wanted to sponsor the podcast or my newsletter, I would happily take them on board as a sponsor and use one of their products. I've been dying to actually buy one of those Sleep 8 products. They're so expensive in Australia. I'm not too sure if anyone else has looked at them, but they're super expensive. But I really would love one. I think that might be my next investment in myself because I sleep so hot and I would like to get rid of the aircon on those hot Sydney nights. It's been pretty humid here the last week or two. And I'm sure if you're based in Sydney, you know what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about eating. I've just been to do not my weekly shop, my half-weekly shop this afternoon. And we are fortunate that we do have some good supermarkets here. Obviously, like everywhere, the better supermarkets are a bit more expensive, but we have a supermarket called a Harris Farm. And the quality of the food there is actually so good. And they don't have a lot of household items. So if you want to go and get your household items as well, like cleaning products and stuff, you have to go somewhere else. I think they have some. But predominantly it's a fresh food type of supermarket and they package a lot of their own food. And I really like it. You're not trying to avoid these horrible aisles where they're just full of, garbage food on the shelves. And they don't have a health food aisle, which I absolutely hate in commercial supermarkets. You get in the health food aisle and it's, protein bars and protein pancakes and all this other rubbish that they promote as health food. And seriously, when are we going to wake up and actually get the message that this stuff is not health food? So look, over 50, the two, and I've said this before, particularly if you're starting out, there's a lot of people I'm hoping I can talk to a broader audience, people that are on their fitness journey, have actually been training for a while and just want to continue with it into their later life. But also, obviously, I appreciate there's a lot of people that are getting a bit of their life back as they move into their 50s. Kids have obviously grown in some situation. Kids have obviously moved out. Your job's a bit easier to manage and potentially not as stressful because you've been doing it a little bit longer and you get a bit more time back. So the two biggest needle movers for most of us is typically what you eat every day. That's the biggest thing that we need to focus on. And then I would say for most people, it's about movement and that's about walking. And once you've actually started to walk every day, and you've heard me say this before, you should be at least walking, 8 to 10,000 steps most days. And then a couple of days a week, you should be prioritizing some walking as your form of fitness. I mean, even if you're doing gym sessions, and you should be including some weight training once you actually build a bit of fitness up. But you can still be walking on the treadmill. And one of the things I'd recommend is, a 30 to 35-minute gym workout and then 15 to 20 minutes walking on the treadmill. If you've got more time, definitely walk longer. An incline treadmill walk is, I think, one of the best things you can do. I've been trying to do more and more of it. And I'm coming back from a bit of an Achilles injury. And my game plan is to train 4 or 5 days in the gym. 3 of those days will be a half-hour walk at the end of the workout. And then 2 days a week, I will go out and go for a run. That's how I'm going to kind of structure my week going forward. I'm just getting over this Achilles injury soon and trying to build that up. And I have spoken about, if you're just getting back into running, about these 30-second runs, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. But just going back to the supermarket and how we should shop, I kind of shop sometimes, if I'm close to a supermarket and I've got something in particular I want to have for dinner, or I don't have all the ingredients, I'll shop daily. But I do tend to shop a little bit more food at a time. I think it's a real luxury if you can shop daily. You also can pick up fresher food. But the fitness industry, typically, there's a lot of confusing information out there, and I don't know why we do it. We're trying to confuse people, make it harder. Um, there's so much information that gets floated around, and some of these protein bars that are promoting themselves as, really high ingredients. And if you look on the back of the protein bar packet, some of the stuff that's in it and all these emulsifiers and ingredients you've never heard of. And there's one new ingredient that's out now in the new David bar, I believe, that they've purchased the company that makes that particular ingredient. And it's something to do with the amount of protein per calories in the bar, because some of the, whatever the products is, whatever one of the products is that actually is in the bar, your body can't burn it, so it doesn't turn into a calorie. Anyway, there's some science around it. I just thought, my God, where are we getting to with some of this stuff? Why don't we just eat real food? Why are we trying to actually get protein from some of these fake foods? And you've heard me say this before, and I'm even I still use protein powder in my breakfast in the morning just to get that little bit more protein first up. But for most people, I would even try and get rid of protein powder. You don't really need these additives. They're just costly, and, you can get majority of your protein from real food. I still need to top up with protein. I'm trying to get a lot of protein into my daily consumption at the moment. And for most people, I think you should be prioritizing it, but you still don't need to be buying protein powders. We don't need supplements. I've spoken about this, and I wrote a newsletter which was really well received the other week. And it was basically an email that I sent to one of my close friends. He was asking me about what supplements to take. He was taking one of the supplements that I don't personally agree with or believe in. I won't mention names, but it's a big commercial company. They're on every second podcast. It was interesting. A couple of days later, he sent me somebody breaking the product down and just that it virtually had no benefit. And then he said to me, I don't feel any better taking it. And I said, I'm not surprised. Supplements don't work like that. It's not like you take a supplement for a few days and you feel massively better. And the other thing is, Chris Devon, who I have on the podcast once a month, he commented on one of my Substack notes the other day about majority of people that actually don't go and get their blood work done to know what they actually need. Most people probably have a lack of vitamin D, and you can take a lot of vitamin D, by the way, without really having too much impact on your system. But if you don't know what you're lacking by getting your blood work done, just taking supplements randomly, it is really just a waste of money. So, we don't need to overcomplicate this. It's not about fancy foods. It's about eating pretty simply and, just doing a little bit of preparation. The protein first rule, I think this is a good one. So when you start building your meals, breakfast, lunch and dinner, you should be looking at your protein first. And again, I've mentioned this plenty of times. I eat pretty simply, and particularly my breakfasts. I'm busy. I get up early. I have the same breakfast every day. I don't have a problem with that. Some people don't like to do that. And it's always built around, I do put that protein powder in my yogurt base that I build in the morning to get a bit more protein into that breakfast, but it is built around Greek yogurt. I use a little bit of almond milk and protein powder, a few nuts in there, and then oats and some fruits and banana and some berries and so forth. And lunch, it's typically chicken for me, sometimes a tuna wrap. But again, it's that protein first, and then I just typically add what else is in the fridge. And dinner will be the same focus. I mix dinners up. I'm trying to cut down my red meat consumption, so I might only do the red meat thing one day a week, and then I'll be doing, salmon, chicken, tuna, prawns. I will make a rice dish with some prawns and some chicken occasionally. So yeah, it's pretty easy to do. You don't need to overthink these things. I understand there's a lot of people out there will probably be saying, "Yep, I don't have children. You're 100% right. I'm not cooking for 4 people. I get to decide what I eat. So I do appreciate that as well. Grocery store shopping. It's a bit of a trap, right? We go into the grocery store, there's this health food aisle, and there's all these other aisles. I lived in the US, so I couldn't believe when I first moved over there. You go into the grocery store and there's cereal aisle or one of the main aisles. In Australia, we have, I don't know, 10 different items. I got to the US, there was like 30 or 40 different items. I couldn't believe the choice. I think choice is confusing for a lot of people as well. But for most people, you need to shop around the outside, right? It's the fruit and veg at one end, the dairy sort of along the back in most supermarkets, and then maybe the meat, chicken and fish at the other end. Pick up a few items down the middle, but typically you don't need to be going up and down the aisles. And I think for a lot of people, it's also about walking into the supermarket with a shopping list. I always have a bit of a list on my phone. I have my standard list, which I use for my Mediterranean diet, which you can have a look at that on the Substack website. That's predominantly the way I like to eat and what I focus on most of the time. And I have that standard sort of list on my phone, so I know the standard items I'm buying all the time. And I can quickly just run back what's in my fridge. My cupboard is typically pretty empty. I don't have a lot of packaged food in the cupboard at all. Might have some tinned tomatoes, some rice. I occasionally have pasta, but not very often. But typically my cupboard is on the lighter side. All my food is predominantly in the fridge. Eggs, Greek yogurt. So some of the simple protein foods you can buy, eggs, Greek yogurt. And by the way, don't be buying flavoured Greek yogurt. They're typically laden with sugar to get the sweetness in there. Even vanilla yogurt. I hate it in the supermarket when I go to buy Greek yogurt and I end up picking up vanilla yogurt. They often say no added sugar, but they're so sweet. I mean, just add some berries to your Greek yogurt or a bit of honey if you need to. You can add cinnamon to it as well, which is often a good thing to sweeten it up. I overnight, if I'm really hungry and I've had a big training day and I need a little bit more food, or if I'm going to train very early in the morning, I will have a little bit of Greek yogurt, some berries on top, and a little bit of cacao powder, just pure cocoa powder on top of it, which I find, absolutely perfect. But some of the things, you can obviously buy the eggs, Greek yogurt. Boiled eggs are a great snack, by the way, just to boil up half a dozen eggs. You've got a snack every day. I just read the other day, which I didn't realize. So if anyone knows more about this, please drop a little note either on Substack or into the podcast. But the protein, how high a protein Parmesan cheese is. I didn't realize how high the protein content was, and it's very low in calories as well. So Parmesan cheese, I believe, and I need to do a little bit more research, but I believe it's actually quite high in protein and probably a better cheese to choose. Cottage cheese, obviously very good. Chicken, I try and alternate ground beef or minced beef, we call it in Australia. I like the word ground. Got that from the US, but I like to, on a weekly basis, buy ground beef as well. And I make that with rice. I just cook a big batch up. I divide it up in containers, and that's typically lunch for 2 or 3 days. And I just have a big bowl of rice, and I just add some rice to it, a little bit of hot sauce on it, some broccoli and some red capsicum, and you've got yourself a really quick, easy lunch. I suppose the big thing is try and keep it simple. Make it so it works for you. Obviously, the way I eat is not going to be for everybody, but following a plan or using some sort of simple plan and guideline that works for you is, I think, the best way. You don't want to try and overcomplicate these things. You don't need to be having a different meal every night. Maybe just choose 3 dinner meals, 3 lunch meals, and again, I go back to the same breakfast, and just rotate through those just to make it easy, particularly. And like many of these things, I remember when I was younger, I grew up in a household where my mum did buy a lot of lollies and biscuits and whatever else, so when she left when I was quite young, then I changed my eating completely. I got into weight training. And what was really interesting is that eventually the taste for anything salty or sweet or processed actually goes away. So it takes a little bit of time, but you've just got to chip away at this. And after a while, you will find that you don't get these cravings anymore for these really high salt and high processed foods. I can't recall the last time I actually bought any sort of takeout food because I just don't crave that flavor anymore. But anyway, yeah, so I'm not going to go on a lot. I just want to, just to reiterate about keeping it simple. And the simplicity is the best thing for most people. If you make these things too complex, you won't follow them. It's a little bit like training as well. Don't overcomplicate this. You don't need to be doing all these super fancy exercises. Some really basic exercise you can just actually follow in the gym. And, and I would start with walking and then the simple exercise that you do know. Talking about exercises, you can actually build a pretty good exercise program. I won't say it's perfect, but using AI today, if you've ever played around with AI, I still think it's like all these programs, it's, garbage in, garbage out. But if you know a little bit about training, you can actually utilize it to get some quite good ideas. I've been just playing around a little bit at the moment, coming up with the ideal 5-day split. And that's been really interesting. And most of the exercise in the gym I've done at some point in time, but it just brings in little things and I'm like, oh God, I haven't done that exercise for a long time, or I haven't tried that. Or that's an interesting way to combine that. Drop the sets on one exercise and increase it on another. Oh, I might try that. So, don't be scared if you have a little bit of knowledge to play around with AI. Even if you have access to somebody else, send it to me. I'm happy for you to actually come up with your own program, then send it to me with a couple of notes about what you're trying to achieve. I'm more than happy to assess that and give you my views and feedback on it. But so just a quick recap. Just focus on, your food. Take a shopping list to the supermarket. Shop in the outside aisles. Keep out of the health food aisle. Get away from cereals for breakfast. They're just absolute rubbish. You shouldn't need to be told that anymore. Read the back of the packet. There's nothing nutritious in a cereal whatsoever. Eat real food. Build each meal around protein first. And just keep it simple and stay consistent. That's it this week. Short, sweet, trying to keep them under 20 minutes. I think Chris will be back on in either this week or the week after. And until next time, bye for now.